So when you buy a new mech, you want to build it first. That costs money, I know, but I would rather have a little bit money in the backside so you can build the mech that you want and play a little bit with it, so in the next step you can skill it up, which costs money as well. But believe me, it's worth it. I'm going to talk about the mech build first, because that's the basic, what you're going to use, and then you can improve it with a skill tree. Now, right here I have selected the Marauder. That is really one of my favorite mechs, and I bought it for you because it has some really good benefits. It's a really, really good beginner mech. So this one is an inner sphere mech. You're going to notice here, you can already see the main points of that mech. It's a 75-ton mech. It is not that fast. It's decent for a heavy mech with 64.8 kph. You have a firepower of 85, which is quite high as well. So that thing can deal damage and it can take a lot of damage. Slots, not that important right now. The armor is important. It has, that specific mech has 448 armor out of 462 maximum. That is quite good. The heat management is quite important. You see 1.31 means the mech wants a little bit hot. Well, I would say everything about 1.2 is acceptable. Everything under it is, for my experience, almost unplayable. But I'm going to show you that later. It shows here the engine that you use, the sensor range. It's not that important right now. The jump distance you can't see because that mech doesn't have any jump jets. I first want to show you something before you even buy a mech. How to see what that mech in the shop brings, and also deciding on which mech to buy, because they bring different benefits. Not only the different chassis, but every single mech has different benefits. So you cannot see the benefits right now on the mech that I already bought, because it's skilled up and it's going to show everything that it has already, like here. So let's have a look at the basic mech fresh from the store. There you see, that is the Marauder that we have right here. And this mech, you can see the hardpoints. It comes with 5 energy hardpoints, 2 missile hardpoints, 1 anti-missile system, and the ECM. And I'm going to show you that later in the Mechlab. More important in the shop, or at least as important, is the loadout, what it already has. You can change that completely, but the quirks that it brings. You have on this specific mech a few benefits. Pretty much in every Marauder you have an increased base structure, which pretty much means when your mech loses your armor, then you still have your skeleton, and that base structure right here is phenomenal. So the Marauder is known for being very durable. You can shoot at it even if it doesn't have any armor anymore. It has a high base structure in all components, like you can see right here. It also comes with a better missile cooldown. It has a decreased heat, and the laser heat generation is also better. Especially like you see on extreme range large lasers. HSL, I forgot what it means, but what it means is you can bring an additional large laser and fire it without any ghost heat. And you can bring one more, fire one more without having that ghost heat. But more important, that mech brings tons and tons of base structure. So let's go to the Mechlab. So just to show you what you do in the Mechlab, I stripped all the equipment of that mech. First of all, when you build a brand new mech, you should have a look at this list, because here you can play around with the slots that you have available. You see the empty slots here. For example, you can change your armor. This one has a standard armor. You can also change it to ferrofibrous armor or light ferrofibrous armor. that mech can carry also stealth armor, which is quite special. You can use that on some mechs when you use an ECM, but I'm going to explain that later. I'm not using this on that mech. With ferrofibers and light ferrofibers, you can save up tonnage, but you will notice when I click on ferrofibers, it takes away some of your slots. So you cannot put so many weapons in it, and sometimes you need that space, so you can't go with ferrofibers. So go back to standard on this one. The other thing that does something with your tonnage and your slots is the structure, which is basically the skeleton of your mech, which is under the armor. You can choose between standard and endosteel. I chose endosteel for that because it's lighter. It saves up quite some tons. You see you have 80 tons here right now that I used. When I go back to standard, you're going to have more room, more available slots, like you see. But also it's heavier, so you already used more tons. You can play around while building a mech. I would recommend, if you want to put in more weapons, or you're running out of tonnage, then play around with this. That gives you some options to modify your mech a little bit more. Second of all, you have your heat sinks. You have standard heat sinks and double heat sinks. You can't see them right now because I stripped the mech. The difference between standard and double heat sinks is not the tonnage. They both have 1 ton each. The standard only takes 1 slot. The double takes 3 slots, but at the same time it's double as effective. So in most cases, double heat sinks are the better choice. Missile guidance is only interesting if you're using LRMs or basically weapons, missiles that lock on. That gives you the choice of Artemis weapons, which are better. They shoot more effective, but they also weight much more. Since I'm not using LRMs on this mech, I go for standard because I don't really need this one right now. So let's have a look at the build. I'm going to reset the mech with all the equipment. And there you see the build in the end. First of all, I want to talk about the armor that your mech has. You can see that on the little yellow numbers. You have 14 out of maximum of 20 on the head. I took a few off here, also on your legs. Like you see, you have a few available here, but the tonnage is already full, so I had to take a little bit armor off on the parts that are not that vulnerable. I have full armor on the important parts, which is the front torso, on your side torso, and on your arms, because that carries everything that is really important and that keeps you alive and that carries the weapons. So, moving on to the weapons. You see, you only have available what you actually can install. This mech cannot carry a ballistic weapon, so the little purple ballistic weapons you can't see right here. You have the energy weapons, the missile weapons, and the anti-missile system. Some mechs can carry that, or even multiple. I don't carry anything on that mech. One thing that I forgot about the armor is I chose to pack minimum armor on the back of my mech. You see the front armor and the rear armor, because I play that game for a while. I'm gonna notice when somebody shoots into my back, and I'm gonna turn around. Which also means if somebody fires twice into my back, I might be dead. So as a beginner, I would recommend put some more armor into your back. On the side torsos, like that, maybe 20. And take some off the front. So that will give you a little bit more opportunity to survive. But once you get more experience, I would recommend put the most armor into the front, because that's where you're going to be shot most of the time. So back to the weapons. On this mech you have 5 medium lasers, 4 in the arms, one in your cockpit, and you have 2 MRM-30s in your side torso. The medium lasers, I'm going to explain later what the different weapons do when I introduce it to the mechs. Well, obviously are laser weapons. The MRMs are missile weapons. They don't need a lock, you can just fire them at a target. So they fire in a straight line, and they have a pretty good range, better than short range missiles. A maximum range of 550 meters on those. Another thing that you have on that mech is a Guardian ECM. You can't carry that on every mech, only a few mechs can carry that. I find it super useful, because what it does, it creates a bubble around you and the teammates close to you, and they protect you from being locked on by enemy mechs when they are not right in front of you, of course. So if you have some distance to them, they can't get a lock on you, also not on the teammates right next to you, and they can't fire their LRMs, their long-range missiles, at you. Also, it's just harder to detect you, and when they can't lock on you, they can't see where you are damaged. So it's a really good thing to have. In the legs, I put the ammo. That has a reason. I don't like to put the ammo into the torso or into the head or into the arms if I can avoid that, because at one point, if you lose your armor, those things can explode. And when they explode, they sometimes take the component with it. Which means if you have them in your center torso, it is really risky. If they explode and your center torso is gone, then you are gone as well. On that mech, I could put them into the legs, so I did. If you lose a leg, it's shitty, but you still can hobble around and shoot. Double heatsinks. You have a few heatsinks already in your engine. You can't see them because they're already in there. And I put 2 double heatsinks in addition into your engine. So that doesn't take up any of your slots. That is just the benefit of that engine. And I've put a few additional into your side torso and 1 into the arm. The more you have, the better your heat will be. If you lose a component, you're gonna lose the equipment on that mech or on that component. For example, if I lose my left arm, I'm gonna lose that 1 double heatsink. But also I'm gonna lose 2 of the medium lasers, so that balances it out a little bit. Right. That's about that mech. Oh, one thing I forgot, because I had the room, I usually don't use it, is the targeting computer. That little thing, you can see what it does. It lets you zoom a little bit more. Your sensor range is a little bit higher, not really much. You can target enemy mechs faster, and you can shoot a little bit further. That is a class 1. It's 1 ton. You can get bigger ones, but to be honest, they're quite heavy. They take a lot of space. I hardly ever use them, even though they might be useful on some mechs. Up here you can see what you have available for your mech. Of course, the weapons, the ammunition. You can only see the ammunition for the weapons that you have installed. We have MRM-30s, so you can install a 1 ton or half a ton. All take 1 slot. Then the equipment. Also, again, only available what you can put on the mech, which is here that ECM. We already have it installed. Some other things you could install are sensors. What we installed here is the targeting computer. And like I said, you can also put big targeting computers in here. Up to 8 tons, also takes 8 slots. You can see it's a big benefit, but it also takes 8 tons and 8 slots, and that is really a lot. You cannot carry it on most mechs. Plus you want the tonnage and the slots for other things. One really good thing is the Beagle Active Probe. It gives you a range boost, a targeting game time boost, but most importantly, it counters enemy ECM. So what you're carrying right here on your mech, if you move close to a mech with Beagle Active Probe, it basically deactivates it. So it's really useful if you carry LRMs or lock-on weapons, and you come close to an ECM mech, you can't shoot them anymore. The Beagle Active Probe deactivates it and you can shoot your lock-on weapons again. I don't really use it on that mech because you already have an ECM and you can counter your ECM to do the same like in Beagle Active Probe. Can show you that in-game. And last but not least, here you find your double heat sinks. Case is something I hardly use. What it does is when you have ammo in a component, you can install an additional case. That case gives a little extra protection against ammo explosion. So if you have to put ammo into your side torso or your center torso, you can install a case to minimize the risk. But on this mech I avoided it and put it into the legs anyway. And there are other ways to minimize the risk of explosion. Engines. You have standard engines, XL engines and light engines on both Clan and Inner Sphere mechs. Well, the main difference is standard engines have a lot of weight, but they also leave you the most slot to play with. Also, they are harder to destroy on an Inner Sphere mech. If you use a standard engine, you can still run around if you lost everything but your center torso. That changes with the light engine. If you lose both of your side torsos on a light engine on an Inner Sphere mech, you're dead. XL engine even worse, you lose one side torso and you're dead. So on big mechs it is really not recommended. I would recommend it for fast mechs because your side torso is really small on that, and XL engine just give you much more room to play with. They are really light, and the bigger the engine, the faster your mech moves. So an XL engine on a light mech, for example, you put in the biggest one because they don't weigh that much. On a heavy mech, I would rather go with a standard engine or with a light engine, because if I lose one side torso, I can still run around. If I lose both, well, it's over for that mech. There's a difference to the Clan versions. They also have the same engines, but they are not that vulnerable. And Clan XL engine will not kill you if you lose a side torso, for example. So that's the main difference between the Clan and the Inner Sphere mechs when it comes to engines. Then you have your consumables. You have cool shots, you have the strikes, and you have the UAVs. Since this mech desperately needs cooling, I went for 2 cool shots. You can make them more effective in the skill tree, and you can select more of that in the skill tree as well. So you can bring up to 5 consumables if you want to. I brought the most important for that mech, which is the cool shot. You don't have any artillery or airstrikes. You don't have any UAVs, but more about that in the skill tree.